what is the best way forward. I'm your host, Henry Minor, and today I'm joined by a lovely guests on set. I hope we shall also be engaging with them. But one thing of which is very important to remember is that there's a way out. Even if it seems as if it is a problem, it is a challenge, but there is a way out. So thank you very much for the lovely audience that we have today. Today we'll begin by asking one question. Sometimes in life, we find a solution, a problem that we cannot find the solution, okay? But why is it that we can't find a solution? Why is it that we can't find a solution to the problem of which we have? And then the reason being is that we don't ask, we don't check from other people. Other people have the solution. I may not have the solution, okay? From my side, it's the problem. But there's another person who has a solution to my problem. That is why when people struggle too much to find a solution by themselves, they end up in despair. They end up giving up. But it's very easy. How many times have you asked your neighbor for help? There's something of which has disturbed you for such a long time. But did you ask? Did you consult? Did you check with your neighbor whether they have a solution to the problem of which you have, okay? So I'll begin by showing a small video clip, and then from this video clip, let's learn a few things when it comes to how we solve our problems within the society.
ถ้าพูดถึงทีมฟุตบอลของเราคงต้องย้อนกลับไปที่วันแรกที่นี่ชาวบ้านชอบดูฟุตบอลกันมากแต่ไม่มีใครเคยเล่นหรอกก็อย่างที่เห็นเรากินนอนอยู่บนน้ำมาแต่ไหนแต่ไรแล้วเพราะที่นี่ไม่มีบึงสักนิดกีฬาอย่างเดียวที่เล่นกันได้คือแข่งเรือไม่ก็โม้กันเรื่องปลาที่จำได้วันนั้นแหละความคิดเล็กๆก็เกิดขึ้นพวกเราคิดตั้งทีมฟุตบอลขึ้นมาแต่ชาวบ้านก็คิดว่าพวกเราบ้าเด็กพวกนี้ กที่เราสู้ไม่ได้เราต้องทำอะไรบางอย่างแล้วก็กลับไปเล่นฟุตบอลแบบของเราด้วยการถอดรองเท้ามันเป็นฟุตบอลแบบที่เราถนัดจริงๆคู่แข่งสู้เราไม่ได้เราเล่นดีขึ้นทำได้ดีขึ้นเราตีเสมอได้เราคิดว่าเราจะชนะแต่เพราะลูกนั้นในนาทีสุดท้ายนั่นแหละเราไม่เสียใจหรอกดีใจสิที่มาได้ไกลขนาดนี้แถมชาวบ้านทุกคนก็ภูมิใจด้วยหลังจากนั้นความคิดของคนทั้งเกาะก็เปลี่ยนไปวันนี้เรามีสนามใหม่ที่ไม่มีตะปูแล้วแต่เราก็ยังไม่ได้เล่นบนสนามหญ้าอยู่ดี
So, did you enjoy the video? No, there are these boys who had a very big passion for football, but there was one big challenge for them. The challenge was the island of which they lived in, there was no space. They were so squeezed that even in between the day-to-day hustle of the citizens of that island, they would even fall into the water. Okay? But these small boys who had the passion of football now started communicating in between themselves. I'm trying to imagine what kind of conversations they were having. Is it possible or is it impossible? Even so from some of the villagers or the people who live within the island, for them it was totally impossible. That is why when the boys had the idea, let us make a football pitch. Where? On top of the water. So they had to consult with someone. Hey, if you are to build a pitch on top of the water, what do we do? Okay? And because of this, then they were able to step forward and they did it. Now, another step was that as they enjoyed playing football on the pitch that they made on top of the water, now they were invited for a tournament. Again, another challenge. We've never played football like other people have played football. For us, we don't have a pitch. So is it possible for us to go or it's not possible? And even if we go, we will win? So those are the things of which were running in their mind. But they decided to go. Then when they went, they found that, we are even far much better than those people who actually practice with a better pitch. And then they made it to the semi-finals. In the semi-finals, it started raining. And because of the rain, they were not used to playing with soccer boots. Okay? So during the halftime few minutes break, then they thought, hey, why don't we remove our shoes and then play as, we are used to, without shoes. So the score during halftime was how it was, 2-0. Okay? But when they came back, they evened the score, 2-2. Okay? Fortunately or unfortunately, the opponent scored a last-minute goal. And so the score was 3-2. But they say they were disappointed, but still also happy that they were able to step forward. Then, years later, on the island of Pani, then these small boys set the record. Right now, Pani is one of the islands of which football is highly celebrated, irrespective of the challenge that they don't have a space to actually build a football pitch. But right now, you saw the pitch of which they've built, very smart one. Then, now let's come to us. How do we perceive things in the society? When you look at a situation, when you look at a problem, do you see it from possibility or the impossibility? Just ask your neighbor, even today. There's something of which you've come across. Did you see it from the possibility or the impossibility part of it? Did they see it from the possibility or the impossibility? That is why today I want us to talk about critical thinking and communication. What is critical thinking? Critical thinking is the way we perceive things, the way we analyze things, okay? The way we package it, and the way we disseminate or communicate to other people. I've said number one is, how do you perceive something? How do you analyze it? How do you package it? And how do you communicate it? Okay? So creative thinking is one of the key components of our society right now, whereby we ought to be creative in the way we see things, okay? The same way that people saw 5 years back is not the same way that we ought to see things. 2 years back, even 1 year back, this is something of which you can be very sure of. Even the way you thought yesterday and the way you're thinking today should all be totally different. Why? Because we are living in a dynamic world. Things today are like this, tomorrow they are changing. So we must learn the skill of how to critically see things and in a more creative manner. That is why I want to ask you from the following picture, what do you see? From this picture, what do you see? A frog? Okay, I will proceed, okay? But when people see this picture for the first time, they actually say it is a frog, of which is very true, okay? Can you see the head on your far left, okay? Top left, there's the head. Then as you go down, you can now be able to see the water, okay? Then you have now the other body of the frog, okay? But now, same picture, then let's tilt it at that degree. What is it now? Okay? But a few seconds ago, the way you saw it, the way you analyzed it, and the way you concluded it, is that it was a frog. Then the same scenario in our life. Sometimes we see something, we already judge, we already finish up with it. This thing is like this. It cannot change. But when I go to a different person, just a few seconds later, when the same picture, then I can find a horse. That is why I'm talking about creativity and critical thinking. It's very important. How do you perceive things in life? Even the problems of which we have within the society, how do we perceive them? Then I'll give you another challenge. We have two images. Image one has a red dot and other black dots are surrounding it, okay? Then we also have image two that seems to be bigger. Then we have big black circles and a big red circle, okay? Now, between the two red circles, which one do you think is bigger than the other? The first one or the second one? Which one do you think is bigger? The first one or the second one? How many people say the second one? Okay, still thinking. How many people say the first one? I'm confused. That's where you are, eh? I don't know, eh? It's very good to be at that position, I don't know, okay? Yes, then let's see. If we remove the black circles, what happens? Which one is bigger? Same. But why was it that when we put this, then now you're trying to think so hard that which one is bigger than the other, okay? Again, how do we perceive things? Sometimes we live within a world of illusion. For example, this person hates me. But you've never checked, you've never asked, you've never confirmed with that person. But just because you live within that world of an illusion, then you think it is true. It is the same with this. When we look at it from this perspective, it seems as if one is bigger than the other. But once we remove the circles, then the circles are the same. Can I give you one more challenge? Okay? We have this picture. And then please look at only the white part of it. Only the white part of it. And then Let me know what you see. Only the white part of it. An angel, okay? Yes, now close your eyes, just blink your eyes, and then open your eyes and then look only on the black part of it. So the image is the same, but what do you see? Okay? Situation is the same, but what do you see? Some people, the same situation will make them fall into despair. Yet, the same situation will make people see it from a perspective of happiness and a thing that can actually make them move forward. So this is very important. How do we perceive things within the society? Right now, as a country, we may be talking about unemployment. We may be talking about corruption. We may be talking about so many other social vices. Much in fact, when you speak to people, it's like we've lost all hope. It seems as if tomorrow we not have a generation. Tomorrow we not have, a country whereby even ourselves we can be happy. But I have a lot of hope. Why? When I look at the corruption cases, then I see them from a different perspective. I see people who can be able to solve the case of these issues of corruption. When I look at the suicide cases, this is a very good point for us now to realize what is it that we are doing wrong, and then now change and see it from a different perspective. That is why we should be people who see things according to a different perspective, a different way, critically and in a more creative way. Then through that, we can overcome all the challenges and problems that we are facing as a society, as an individual, as business people, as corporates. Please don't judge, don't analyze and put a full stop thinking that that is the end of it, okay? There's something beyond what you can see. And that is why how we go about all these things is one thing. How now do you communicate? How do you speak about these things? After you've seen it in a certain way, how do you communicate it? I've come across many people who actually speak only on the negative aspect of life. They are only full of complaint. Even if you give them all that they need, then at the end of the day, they still complain. So communication. And communication is one skill of which many people take for granted. Yet, it is a very key component in our life. Okay? So in terms of communication, I just want to speak about maybe forms of communication. We have verbal communication, okay? We have written communication, non-verbal communication, like body language. Yeah? So how do you communicate with this aspect? It's very important the way you speak to people, even in terms of writing. And when it comes to writing, then we have the social media, which is a platform that we highly advocate. Please use it positively, okay? Let's not just, communicate from a negative perspective, especially on the social media. And then now we have the body language communication. How do you communicate when you meet people, with people, and how do you go about this aspect? So aspects of communication, number one, keep it simple and sweet. Just go straight for whatever you want to say, straight and come out clear. Don't beat around the bush. Clarity is something of which is very important. Because, for example, when you go to the doctor, okay, let's say now we have a doctor-patient scenario. Let's imagine about the patient. The patient, when you're a patient, do you go straight to the point or you start beating around the bush? You want to go straight to the point. Why? You want to give the doctor all the details so that at least the doctor may find the right diagnosis, one, and then two, the right treatment for you, okay? So even in terms of the way we communicate, please don't make people misunderstand you by you trying to, talk about so many things, yet you only want to speak about one thing. Go direct to the point, speak about it, okay? Number two, the confidence of communication, whereby do it with courageousness. so that people don't also doubt whatever it is that you are trying to communicate. Number 2, you must be focused and take control. By this I mean, if I want to speak about a chair, let me not start talking about so many other things. If it's a chair, that's our conversation will be on the chair. If you find that we are going out of topic, then let's come back to the aspect of the chair, okay? And then trust. You should also do this, your communication from a perspective whereby it's trustworthy. Whatever you tell people, then gain the trust of other people, and also for you, you should gain the trust on how you speak to people. Then the last one is listening. How do you listen? And this is where now I want to dwell upon. How do you listen? But are you good listeners or bad listeners? Are you good listeners or bad listeners? You're good listeners. Why did it take you, until I asked the third time whether you're good listeners or bad listeners? If you're a good listener, within the first question, you should already have answered. You understand, eh? Yeah. But many people think I'm a good listener. And then because of this, their posture of listening is also not correct. Okay? But by the way, did you go to any school to teach you about listening? Did they teach you this is the aspect of how you ought to listen? For me, they taught me how to speak, they taught me how to read, they taught me so many things, but all that they told me was, please listen. But beyond that, I didn't find a person to tell me about how to actually do the listening until I went to a class that actually talks about listening. Okay? So listening is something important. There's one person who said it takes 3 years to speak, but 60 years to listen. For a small child, how long does it take for this child to speak? Within the 3rd year, 4th year, by the 3rd year, they're already making some few words, and a few sentences. But after that, now they can construct a sentence, and it's very good in terms of communication, okay? But this one person who said that it takes 3 years to speak and 60 years to listen, what does he mean? He meant something like this. Then for the whole of your life, you must gain the skill of listening again and again. This is something that never ends. Very important. And then he adds and says that great CEOs are great listeners. All great people are great listeners. And great listeners are great people or great CEOs. So if you want to run a business and run it in a big way, just be a great listener. Okay? If you want to become the best husband, just become a good listener. If you want to become a good wife, a good listener. If you want to become the best parent in this world, then learn the aspect of listening. Now, listening is the basic posture of your heart. What do I mean when I say that listening is the basic posture of your heart? For example, do you know how to swim? Have you gone for swimming lessons? But do you know how to swim? No, when you go to a swimming lesson, then the first thing that they teach you is hold on the rail, okay? And then, flap your legs, And then you have to do that for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Until you gain that confidence, then they can take you to the next stage of lessons of swimming, okay? Also in boxing, it is the same. When people learn boxing, it is not just a matter of, taking the boxing gloves and then, punching people, okay? The first thing is that the coach teaches you a basic posture, okay? One foot in front, the other one behind. And then they give you like a stare. And then they tell you right, left, and then you have to do that for 2 months. Right and left. Until you gain the basic posture of boxing. Then now you can go to the next stage. The reason being, if you miss out on the basic posture, it will become a very big problem as you now do the boxing professionally. You understand? All other classes will be very difficult. Now it is the same. In our life, if we don't learn the basic posture of listening, then it means in our day-to-day life we'll encounter a lot of problems. That is why listening is the basic posture of the heart, okay? Then what is listening? Can we define now listening, okay? Now, listening has 3 components. Number 1, listen with your ears. Number 2, see it with your eyes. Then number 3, feel it with your heart, okay? So, 3 things that are very important in listening. Number 1, I said, is see it with your eyes, listen with your ears, see it with your eyes, and feel sympathy with your heart. For example, when people communicate and I don't actually give them my ear, I'm just looking at them. Have you come across such kind of instances whereby maybe a person is speaking to you, umemwangalia lakini your concentration is not there? You understand, eh? Then at that point you can realize you're not listening, okay? Even the way you are seated right here, maybe some of you are already in a different world. You understand, eh? But you are here. But maybe your heart and your concentration is not here. That is why many people have a deception towards listening. They think listening is just, kind of me giving you your ear. But it goes beyond, whereby you have to listen with your ears, eyes, and also with your heart. Now, when we listen, then we should listen to gain the hearts of people. I hope you get this more clearly, okay? We should listen to gain the hearts of people. For example, let's say we are within a class setup, and then we have a student and a teacher, okay? This teacher, sometimes when the teacher speaks, the voice is so soft. So when the voice is so soft, the students, what do? They tend to kind of, take it lightly. You understand, eh? And then also when the teacher is maybe too loud or too harsh, what do the students do? They take it seriously. Much in fact, they tend to draw back in terms of like a rebellion aspect. You understand, eh? When the teacher seems to be too harsh, the students will form like a rebellious aspect of it. Eh? But what the teacher wants is not about the teacher, it's not about either the soft tone or the harsh tone. It's about what does the teacher want to communicate to you. You understand, eh? Now, take it for example. We have a donkey and its master. A donkey and its master. What language do they speak? Kiswahili? English? Spanish? What language do they use to communicate? Yet, the donkey understands its master very well. And also the master understands the donkey very well. So which language do they speak? They speak the language of the world of the heart. You understand, eh? If the master is able to understand, the donkey, and then the donkey is able to understand the heart of the master, then these two can work in companion together very well. Then why do we have misunderstandings between the boss and the staff? It is because they're not speaking the language of the heart. Why do we have the misunderstanding between the teacher and the student? It is because they're not speaking the language about the world of the heart. But if these people actually learned this skill of listening to the heart of other people, then even people will not take advantage of other people. You understand, eh? Yeah. If you came to me and then you have a problem, and then I was to serve you, and then I understood actually what your heart is, then for sure I would be able to serve you to the fullest. But problem is, when people speak, then they're not speaking out their heart. That is why when they solve things from the outward it, but they don't solve the issues inside of in the heart of the heart. That is why it's very important when you listen to people, listen to gain the people of the hearts of these people, okay? Yes. And then number 2, speaking well is of knowledge. You may speak very well, okay? But if you don't gain the skill of listening, then you lack wisdom. But people who have gained this skill of listening, then they are very wise people. Very wise. That is why they say we have how many ears? 2. And the mouth? 1. Why? Let's do more of listening than speaking. Check wise people within the society. They are not quick to speak. First and foremost, they will listen. And then after listening, after analyzing everything, then now they will speak. But what about those people who just speak without first doing the aspect of listening? Even their decision making is very poor. Okay? So it's very important for us to learn and gain the skill of listening. Now we have levels of listening or types of listening. Number 1, there are people who do something we call spouse listening. There are other people who do something called passive listening. Others do active listening. And number 4, contextual listening. So number 1, spouse listening. Maybe from the audience and the people out there, we can testify to this. Husband and wife, okay? And then the wife is asking the husband, honey, today, what do you want us to cook? And then husbands, how do you answer?
Anything.
Anything is okay. Sindio? Then, did you truly answer the question of your wife? You understand, This spouse listening is something that is very common. Then, maybe number 2, the wife is asking, honey, today, what kind of a dress do I wear? Have you asked your husband such kind of a question? Today, what do I wear? What was the answer?
You have many clothes.
Is your wardrobe empty? Those are the kind of answers that, we will give, and vice versa in so many instances. But why I'm speaking about this spouse listening is because spouse listening is whereby you don't pay any concentration to the person asking that question. You're not even interested. You don't try to gain the hearts. Why is my wife asking me, what shall we cook today? Why is my wife asking me, what kind of a dress should I wear today? And people who do this spouse listening, then they have a lot of problems within the society and even in terms of their relationship, okay? That is why it's very important for us to consider this. I'll give the last example, maybe mother and child. A child has come from school and then, is asking the mother, Mother, today we are given some homework. How should I do the homework? Then the mother is answering,
Very busy.
Or do it the way best. You just do. Then is this mother listening to the child? No. Now let us compare to a person who is doing the passive listening. A mother who is doing passive listening will ask the child, which homework were you given? Okay? Then from that point, then the child now and the mother, at least there's a conversation. For example, I was told to color. You are told to color? What were you told to color? A flower. Okay, very nice. Take the colors and start coloring. So at least here between the mother and the child, there's a conversation. Okay? So here is whereby you listen, but also you're just listening, however, you're not paying full attention to whatever the other person is speaking about, okay? And then now let's speak active listening. Active listening is whereby now you listen carefully. For example, the posture of your listening also takes a different posture. I don't know whether you've gone to offices and then the person who is serving you is on the laptop. And then they're telling you, speak, I can listen to you. But eye-to-eye contact, there is no eye-to-eye contact. Yes, surely this person is listening to you, but which kind of level are they doing with this kind of listening? They are doing it passively and not actively, because actively is a person who will look to you, and then they will try to gain even how what is this person trying to speak about? And especially when you're speaking to other people, please read their body language. It also has a lot to say. Okay? Maybe by the time someone is speaking to you, they already have tears within their eyes. That means what? This person needs more time. You understand, eh? But if I'm the person who is telling you, speak, I'm listening, then can I be able to read even your facial expression? No. Then is there any type of communication that is ongoing there? No. That is why listening forms the core of communication. And the last one is whereby we have contextual listening. In contextual listening, then here you are able now to fit into the shoes of the person who is speaking to you, okay? Denying everything about yourself and then giving full concentration to the other person, okay? This is whereby you know the intention of the person who is speaking to you. People who do this contextual listening are the people who even go to an extent whereby they ask about the history of whatever is it that you're bringing to them. When did this problem start? How far has it gone? What is the issue behind it? Then this kind of a person now is trying to fit into the shoes of this person. And then they have the intention. Now, they also have the feeling. Like, okay, also me, I can be able now to tell, surely you're in pain. And then now they also apply sympathy to the listening of which they do. So these 4 types of listening, what kind of listening do you do? Are you the people who do spouse listening? Are you the people who do passive listening? Are you the people who do active listening, or you do contextual listening? Then there's a very big difference between these aspects of listening. Okay? There are people who even do, they totally ignore you. Like for the spouse listening, totally. Concentration is not there, anything is not there, and then this type of people are the ones that is making our relationship go sour each and every day. There's a book called Core of Leadership. I hope that you can find time and read. In the Core of Leadership, it explains listening in a more elaborate manner. And then for them, they've divided into ignore, pretend, selective, attentive, and sympathetic. These are more similarly to the same of which we've spoken about, okay? But I would love to pick just maybe quickly go through it. Number 1, ignore. Ignore listening is whereby you don't look and you don't try even to listen. And then we have number 2, pretend. Pretend is whereby this person seems as if they're listening, but they're actually pretending. They're not listening. Number 3, selective listening. What is selective listening? Selective listening is whereby whatever you're saying is very true, okay? But up to this point. Beyond this point, I don't agree with you. So selective listening, you listen up to the point whereby you agree with it. That of which you don't agree with, you reject. So you pick maybe 50 you reject. Or you pick 30, 70 you reject. Then this is not true listening. And then we have attentive listening, whereby there's a conversation. At least here there's a conversation that is going on. And then we have sympathetic, of which is very similar to what we spoke about, the contextual listening. So I hope we can be able now to explain and also learn what kind of listening do we do. So quickly, I want to just give a case study of one person who became very renowned. Much in fact, he entered into the World Book of Guinness Records from one simple thing of listening. He's known as Joseph Gerard. Gerard is a person who used to sell cars. And then in 15 years, he sold 13,001 cars. So you can imagine, 13,001 car. How was he able to achieve this? One day, an old woman was walking to the car bazaar. And then, Joseph came to this woman and then he was explaining. By any chance, you've come across people who do sales? Yeah? People who do sales. In 1 minute, they can explain something, like 1,000 words in 1 minute, trying to explain something. So, I'm not saying it's bad, but do they give you an opportunity for you to speak? So Joseph was still the same. Then he only wanted to explain to this woman. But this woman left the car bazaar very frustrated. And then before she left, Joseph handed her a business card. Please call me if you change your mind. So when she went home, she called Joseph. Mr. Joseph, today I was very angry with you. Hey, why, madam? The reason being, you never gave me a chance to speak. You never listened to me. From that day, how Joseph dealt with customers was not from a point of him speaking a lot, but from a point of listening to his customers and to the clients. From that point, everything about him changed. Okay? I want to give you a case study of people who do not listen. Do you know tuberculosis? The disease called tuberculosis, Tuberculosis, does it have a cure or it doesn't have a cure? It has a cure, okay? Like it is curable, okay? But are people dying from tuberculosis or they're not dying from tuberculosis? Yeah. Why are people dying from tuberculosis? Because when they go to the doctor tells them, Mr. So-and-so, we've detected that you have tuberculosis. Now, it's very simple, okay? It may be hard, but it is very simple. What you have to do, please take this medication without skipping any for the next 6 months. After 6 months, you'll be fully cured. And then the patient goes home, takes the drugs for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, kikohozi inaisha. Afya inarudi, si ndio? By the 5th month, are they taking the drug or they stop taking the drug? They stop taking the drug. Once you've stopped taking the drug, then now you get something called multi-drug resistant TB. Okay? And then you go back to the doctor. Then the doctor tells you, okay, no problem. Even if you have a multi-drug resistant TB, no problem. What you have to do is please take this medication for the next 8 months. For how many 8 months?
8 months.
And then they take it for 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. And then they stop. Now, when they stop, they develop something called XDR, okay? Like extreme drug resistant TB. Now, this is the biggest problem. At the end of the day, these people end up dying because of TB. Then, in our life, why do we fall into misery? Why do we fall into problems? Remember, I was speaking about people don't consult, okay? People don't ask. People don't know how to communicate. Even when they communicate, they seem as if they are listening, but they are actually not listening. Let us listen, okay? Let us gain the skill of listening. If we gain the skill of listening, all problems that we have can be able to be solved in a very easy way. I want to tell you for sure, in this world, there's no problem that doesn't have a solution. Problem number 1, we are not communicating, okay? Then problem number 2 is that we are not doing the true listening. If we just communicate and then do it in a very perfect way of true listening, then all our problems can be able to be solved. Even when we take the context of the Bible, there's one person called King Saul. God tells him, go and utterly destroy all, the young and the old. Sindo? All. But when King Saul goes to destroy the Amalekites, he finds some things of which are good. Sindo? Hey, the fat ones, I want to make a sacrifice to God. Okay? But God said what? Destroy all. Then at the end of the day, King Saul, blessed or cursed? Cursed. Why? He didn't listen. So even for us to receive a blessing from God, okay, let us listen. And let us do the true listening, denying ourselves. Yes, from you may be able to see it from a different perspective, but remember the first picture I showed you, the horse and the frog. Yes, you may know it from this perspective, but also there's another perspective. Okay? So thank you very much. And I hope that the society out there, beginning with ourselves, we can be able to gain the skill of listening. with students and dealing with the society out there, how do you think people are actually communicating and doing this aspect of listening?
Thank you, Henry. Communication, from what we've learned, is very key. And from the perspective of the mindset, for us to change our mindset from the impossibility to possibility, communication is very key. However, the challenge that most people have in the society is that I have a problem. I would want somebody to listen to me, but who would really do it? So most people in the society have a challenge of finding a good listener. And sometimes when people go out to talk about their problems, they're really not sure where to take it to. They are really not sure that will I be listened to. You know, the heart-to-heart communication and listening. Really, I'm a strong advocate of professional counseling services in organizations and in our institutions. Because if listening is done professionally, then then we will be able to reduce some of the mental health challenges that we have in the society. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Philip, as a student leader, do you ever consult, do you ever listen to other people? And how do you go about in terms of leadership as a student leader?
Thank you so much. Listening has become a very difficult topic, especially among the youth. We live in a dynamic world, and every time we meet different situations in our lives. But we have the tendency to think that our problems are too big that they cannot find any solution. So because of that, most of the time when you have difficulties, we tend to fall into isolation. In a state whereby we struggle with our difficulties, we ourselves. But as we've learned before, we can get to realize that a problem is a problem if there's no solution. But we realize that the main problem why people cannot, why many of the students cannot come out and discuss their problems is because of the weak mind. Weak mind makes students to feel that their problems is the end of their lives, or the problems does not have any other way to be solved. Mm-hmm. So because of this, it has brought many fatalities, especially to students becoming miserable because they can't share their difficulties. So thank you very much.
Okay. From the audience, maybe you can have a couple of questions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
My name is...
They inquire whether you can stand. They can't see you. Yes, it's on.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Margaret Barasa from KISS University. My area of specialization is applied linguistics. Now, my question goes to Dr. Rose Otieno. And maybe I would start by saying that we come from different cultures, especially here in Kenya. And our cultures influence the way we think and also the way we communicate, the way we speak. Now, from a psychologist perspective, from the mindset perspective, to what extent can we say that our cultures influence our communication mindset? And if it does, what can we do to improve on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Margaret. I agree with you that our culture is very important. And to look at it from the psychologist's point of view, when we are handling clients, we don't handle clients in isolation from their culture. Counselors are listeners, and it's good to listen to cultural undertones of what is said. And it's important that you do not handle a client away from the culture, because we have to integrate the culture into listening to people and hearing their problems. Because culture can actually contribute to a mental health problem. But do we know the same culture can be a very protective factor when you are dealing with a client. Let me give you an example. Like the culture where I come from, being a Luo, if a woman is widowed, the society, some time back, but even now, it still happens. The society expects a woman to be inherited. And that alone can cause psychological distress, because why should I be inherited if I really don't want to do it? So it can actually trigger mental health problem. But again, the same culture has the beauty of, if a woman is widowed, then the other members of the society come in to support. And that's why it's very important that to find out if the culture is a distressing factor contributing to a mental health problem, or contributing to, is a protective factor. Can people go back to their culture to find protection? And again, sometimes you find that, like in the environment where I work, people would believe like if somebody has a problem, then there's somebody behind it. Maybe this person was bewitched. So you cannot isolate an individual's culture from the problem that the person has. But from the perspective of the mindset, we have, for example, in our cultural setting, men would rarely, if they face a challenge, like they want somebody to talk to, then men would not want to speak, because an African man is not supposed to admit his vulnerability. Mm-hmm. So what happens in this case, the African man would not want to seek counseling services or simply to talk to somebody about the issues affecting them, because that is seen as being vulnerable. If an African man loses a close person, let's say a wife, then the African man probably is not expected to cry or to even say that I'm missing my wife, and that can be psychologically distressing. So culture really plays a role. In that aspect, then culture can trigger a mental health problem. But again, we can still go back to the same culture and say that you can actually use your culture to handle your mental health problem. So culture must be part and parcel of being integrated into listening. Mm-hmm. And let us not listen to people without considering their culture. Every individual must be understood within the cultural context. I hope I answered your question.
Okay. Thank you very much. We had one more question.
Okay. My name is Mary, mindset specialist. Now my question goes to Philip. For example, you are in a position, you are communicating with someone, thinking that through that communication or through your points, maybe you can think that you are wrong or you are right. So through this question, I was asking through the lecturer has said that there's a book called The Core of Leadership, and there are some levels of listening. So through this, my question, how can this listening can be clarified on those levels?
Sorry?
For example, you are in a communication with someone, but through that communication, you think that through your communication, you think that you are right, or you can judge by yourself thinking that that person does not understand. So through the book, The Core of Leadership, how can this be clarified?
Okay. There's a conversation going on between two people. And then how can you be able to differentiate that this one is on the wrong side and this one is on the right side, if I get the question right? Yeah.
Okay. On aspect of communication, as a teacher could elaborate clearly, there is three major forms of communication: listening with the ears. When you are listening to someone who is speaking to you, you don't only, when you are speaking to someone and you want to know that this person is listening, it is not only about him responding to you, but also the body language. When you are talking to someone and he is busy on computer doing something, or he's facing the other way, then you can clearly see that this person does not have your attention. Even though he may show a sign, or he may, from his gesture, it is as if he's paying attention to you. But we believe that eye contact is the best posture of good listening. So for me to understand that this person is actually listening to me and getting what I'm trying to communicate, we believe that eye contact is a major aspect that I should focus on. So thank you.
Maybe Dr. I can see you want to also.
Yeah, and maybe just to add to that, that is why it's important we are learning about the mindset from this book. Maybe we need to reflect back and see how we have been listening. Have we been doing pretend, ignore, or selective? But the last two for me would be the best: attentive listening, listening to what is said and what is not said, the tone, the eye contact, the body language. And then also listen with the heart, the sympathetic listening. So listen to the feelings of the person, and that would be very important. So why not, after this training, why not all of us pick the last two and probably drop the selective listening and change the way we have been listening, and that would be a positive mindset.
Okay. Philip, they tell me you have a few seconds, less than 1 minute, and that is your main camera. If you are given an audience of the whole country, and let's say you're giving a speech to the country, what would be your last words? Or what is your punchline as we end the show?
Okay, thank you. As you said before, it takes 3 years to speak and 60 years to listen. So to be a successful, they also say to be a successful CEO, you have to have a good listening. So I would urge everyone to focus on listening as the greatest aspect. Okay. Sorry. I urge everyone to take learning listening skills and basic posture of listening as a basic aspect of their studies. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ross, all the way from Kisii University, we are so much that we have you. Your punchline.
Thank you, fellow Kenyans. Let us have a positive mindset. Where we are, as listeners, as the CEOs, let us do the extraordinary. Let us move from the point of impossibility to the point of possibility. Together we can do it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so much. We end the show here. Remember, thank you so much.